Russia, a land as vast culturally as it is geographically. Bordering 14 countries, the Russian Federation spans 11 time zones across 2 continents, playing host to the highest peak in Europe as well as the largest freshwater lake in the world. At nearly 6.5 million square miles, it is almost twice the size of the next largest country, yet is home to only the 9th largest population. To say Russia is immense is an understatement. Just beyond Siberia lies the Russian Far East. Amounting to over 1/3 of Russia's total area, the Far East is home to only 1/8 of its people. As a place of exile for centuries, this harsh and boundless region is a time warp, and aside from the handful of bustling cities, seems impervious to progress. With so much land, some of the coldest temperatures in the world, and an infrastructure stuck in the 60s, nothing here is easy. So, naturally, this is where we've come to drive our Suzuki convoy, up through this raw and beautiful land on leg 2 of Tokyo to LA, the hard way.
That says I can join the 4-wheel drive club now.
Part 2 of Tokyo to LA the hard way begins here in Vladivostok. Our Suzuki Kizashis have been shipped safely from Japan to arrive in Vladivostok, which is known as the San Francisco of the far eastern Russia. Now, from here we head 3,300 miles north to Magadan via Yakutsk and the Road of Bones.
This is where things get tough. In Japan, on leg 1, our team reveled in sushi, ryokans, and smooth, modern roadways. For leg 2, we leave all that behind for some of the toughest driving conditions in the world. We're to leave just after a press conference and send-off party at Sumotori, the region's one and only Suzuki dealership.
All right, to make it official, to really kick off Tokyo to LA the hard way, we decided to sticker up our Kizashi because let's be honest, the Japan leg was easy. This is really where the fun begins.
Unlike the Japan leg of this journey, our Kizashi won't be running the route alone. It's just too dangerous. Road conditions dictate a full support team that includes an identically prepared Kizashi, a Suzuki V-Strom 650 motorcycle, and 2 Suzuki Equators, with one hauling a small off-road trailer. Joining these extra vehicles are our local translator Paulina, a team of British and American logistics experts, and 2 motoring journalist colleagues, Fred Williams and Joe Gresh. We're easing into our epic journey with a short 200-mile stint. This is to work out any kinks in our preparation and give the newly arrived some time to cope with the 18-hour time difference. With some time to spare, we make a detour before heading into the resort town of Shmakovka, where we will be sleeping for the night. Tiptoeing along a damp dirt path, we find the perfect spot for a quick photo shoot at Lotus Lake, a beautiful but mosquito-infested pond absolutely covered in enormous lily pads and blossoming lotus flowers. After a rough night's sleep, thanks to the town's 115th anniversary celebration, we roll out of Shmakovka on the 2-lane M60, which is smooth and quite fast in some stretches. We push it over 95 miles per hour for a bit, but bring the speeds way down for brief stretches of gravel, including a section that is our first real test of our specially prepared Kizashi. For the smooth roads of Japan, the Kizashi was essentially left stock. To cope with far more variable Russian driving conditions, Suzuki and its logistics company decided to protect as much of the undercarriage as possible by sealing it off with various skid plates and coverings. The suspension dampers have also been swapped for height-adjustable remote reservoir rally-style shocks. These raise the ride height of the car just a touch for extra clearance, but more importantly, provide insurance against harsh, high-speed impacts that could end our trip in dramatic fashion. Miles pile on, and the Chinese border and spectacular countryside fall away, replaced with roadside cafes, surprisingly modern-looking gas stations, and other signs of increasing urbanization. We're approaching the Amur River now, and the biggest city in the region, Khabarovsk. Khabarovsk is a far cry from where we started this morning. It's a large, European-feeling city with wide streets, modern conveniences, and cool breezes coming off the river. We dine on locally caught salmon, surprisingly overcooked, and our first bad meal thus far, before turning in. we need plenty of rest, as tomorrow is the first long day of our journey. We are leaving the town of Khabarovsk, and as you can see, it's raining, which is kind of lousy because we had such good weather so far. We are heading 409 miles north. The city is Belogorsk. I'm growing fond of the Kizashi. Though initially, the sluggish throttle and CVT response were hard to get used to, today's run is transformative. The suspension has a lot to do with it, but the rest of the car acquits itself quite well. Although there isn't much power, the car still feels light and communicative at speed. The good vibes thus far end when we turn off the road and caravan into the town of Belogorsk. Though it's a city of about 76,000 people, it might as well be an arbitrary point on a map, across the Nothing River just down the road from nowhere. Our logistics crew said it was the only place within 200 miles with a hotel that takes foreigners. So it was either this or camping. I'm not entirely sure we made the right decision. There's a great fadedness to everything here, although it might just be the weather. People seem to smile a lot less, and with our traveling circus drawing more and more attention as we head deeper into the far eastern countryside, it's the first time we don't feel safe. And although tomorrow is another 400-mile day, it can't come soon enough. Though it's cool and drizzly, we're happy to say das vidanya to Belogorsk and get back on the M60. The scenery has changed dramatically from the seaside sophistication of Vladivostok and the Primorsky Krai region of southeastern Russia. There is not a building or outhouse in sight, no fences or power lines, nothing. It's simple, but spectacular. We say goodbye to the smooth M60 and turn northeast on the M56 towards Tinda. From here on out, we'll be driving mostly on dirt, except for short stretches of tarmac in the cities, towns, and villages we encounter. After a traumatizing night in tiny, ramshackle Belogorsk, our crew is happy to find Tinda a veritable oasis in the middle of the Russian wilderness. Unlike Belogorsk, the streets are paved and the locals are friendly. Well, at least a lot less sketchy looking. Upon arrival, we noticed some major problems with our off-road trailer, but that will have to wait until the morning.
We're in Tinda, and we have a slight delay here. We have to make some repairs to our trailer. It's just one of many little problems we've had along the way. Yesterday we had to tighten up a bit of suspension on both Kizashis. Our motorcycle also had an issue with the starter. Right now we have had a blowout in one of the shocks on the back of the trailer. Last night we actually had to fix the layout of the pop-up tent on top, but looks like we got it under control. Should be out here in about half an hour and on the way to Aldan.
It's below 50 degrees when we begin our journey to Aldan, and from here on out, the route to Magadan has not been scouted by our advance team. We will have no forewarning, other than the occasional road sign, for things like police stops and road hazards, and our daily distances and lodging locations are best guesses. As we head into the Yakutia region, the landscape is now a thick blanket of pine trees over hills and mountains. We start seeing more Asian people pop up in the towns and villages and in trucks heading the opposite direction. And I'm told by Paulina that ethnic Chinese and Koreans have lived in this part of Russia for several generations. The towns and cities are changing as well. They're small, country villages, and we can often see the city limits through our windows as we drive through. The massive apartment blocks, built that way in bigger cities to share heat during brutal winters, are harder to find. They've been replaced by wood houses, often ornately decorated with cheerfully painted wood slats. After another 10-hour day on the road, waiting for us in Aldan is an oasis called the Welcome Plaza Hotel, and it is the roughest place we've been so far. It's 6 a.m. and cold when we motor out of the Welcome Plaza, but we're happy because the cars, trucks, and bike made it through the night intact. We have to push on as fast as we can. We're trying to make the ferry to Yakutsk and have conflicting reports as to how far away the landing point actually is. One source says just over 200 miles, while another claims it's more like 300. However far it is, we have to get there on time, or we risk adding an extra day to our journey. The trailer situation isn't helping either. We stop outside a small town for an hour to fix the blown shock absorber. Again.
The upper shock mount is welded to a piece of square tube, and it collapsed the side of the square tube. The shock collapsed, blew out the seal, and so the swing arm was bottomed out up on the bump stop. So we cranked down the coil over to preload the coil, and we found this old bump stop off of some Russian truck over here in the dirt, and we're using a hose clamp to attach that to the swing arm until we get to the next town, and we'll try to figure out how we're going to fix it.
That might be the way to lead it anyway.
Yeah.
Back on the road, we make it to the ferry landing with time to spare. For us, it costs about $77 to cross the Lena, one of the longest and widest rivers in all of Russia. After we pull off, it's another 100 miles of dirt before we get to Yakutsk. The town feels like a big city after all the little villages we've passed recently. But Yakutsk is a far cry from our final destination. We're headed for Magadan, and between the two cities is about 1,200 miles of the Kalima Highway, also known as the Road of Bones.